My entitled father, in a fit of rage, canceled all of our hotel reservations at the last minute after most of the family came into town for my aunt's wedding, while also expecting all of us to sleep on the floor, despite never providing blankets, mattresses, or sleeping bags of any kind. And I'm honestly so blown away by my father's entitlement that I have now decided that I will never trust my father with anything ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was only a few years ago, but this is literally the most jerk thing that my entitled father has ever done. So my aunt, my father's younger sister, was getting married a few years ago. She lives in a major metro area and was getting married downtown. My father generously offered me, myself, my grandmother, and my brother separate hotel rooms to house us and our respective spouses within walking distance to the venue. No renting a car, no stress. It would be an easy in and out once we arrived in the city. We would just have to get ourselves there and he would take care of the rest. I want to point out that my dad is financially secure and none of this would have put him in dire straits. My brother and his wife flew in, and I was going to fly, but I live within a day's driving distance of my aunt. And while initially I was going to fly, at the last minute something made me change my mind. I told my dad I was going to drive, and he said to me, "What in the world are you doing that for?" But honestly, I wanted to have access to a car, and I guess as a safety measure, I threw in the trunk a sleeping mat, a blanket, and a pillow. And I guess I just had a feeling that things were gonna go bad. So me, my dad, and my brother and his wife are meeting my dad at my grandmother's house when all of us get into town, which is a full 25 miles away from where my aunt is getting married in a few days. No one has rented a car and my grandmother doesn't drive. So my car is the only car that we all have, but it's totally fine. We're all moving to the hotel soon, right? Well, I couldn't be more wrong. My father calls the hotel to ask about parking since I have the car that he insisted we didn't need, and the hotel informs him that you need to pay if you want to park. Well, my entitled father finds this to be the last straw, even though this was the only straw. All our plans are coordinated, but for some reason, upon hearing that the parking isn't free, he proceeds to cancel all of our hotel reservations. And he does this just like that on the spot. And this is all because of the cost of parking, which is something I would have happily paid for, but no, instead he cancels everything. I was taken back at this, and I asked where he expected everybody to sleep. My father then pointed to the floor. "You, your brother, and your brother's wife can sleep right there." Now, I need to point out that my grandmother lives alone, and my dad was in the guest room. Other than that, she has no accommodation, she has no extra pillows, bedding, or anything like that. The living room had a chair and a table. I mean, her house only had 2 rooms. None of us are kids anymore, and we would all just literally be sleeping on the floor. And this is all after being promised that we would be taken care of. My dad is a massive jerk in general, so a part of me was not surprised by this at all. And I think that's why in the back of my mind, I drove and brought supplies with me. So now we had to scramble. I ended up driving my father to the car rental place because now we had to cart everybody around, and I spent 3 days hauling everybody about. My brother and his wife were also lucky to buy their own reservations at another hotel nearby, so I carted them around to and fro, and my father and I drove everybody to the rehearsal dinner, the wedding, the reception, and the breakfast on Sunday for opening the gifts. I ended up being the only one sleeping on the floor in the living room, but I took it in stride while making a mental note to never trust my father ever again. He's not really a great guy, but for some reason this was like the worst thing he's ever done. And I guess this is because he basically said, "I have everything taken care of, just show up." But then he turns around and makes everybody scramble for everything at the last minute. And I'm honestly so sickened by his behavior, and I really hope I never deal with this kind of treatment ever again. Wow, your dad is a massive jerk, and he seems like the most sensitive man on planet Earth. You mean to tell me that he canceled all of your hotel reservations, all because you brought your own car to this wedding event? Like seriously, there's no reason for that. In fact, the only reason I can think of is because he wanted to have full control over you and your siblings the entire time. He wanted you to be completely reliant on him, so he could basically like lord over you the entire time. Like that is insane behavior in my opinion, and the fact that he did that under the guise of, "Oh, this is gonna be easy for you guys. There's gonna be no stress and it's gonna be so simple." Like that alone is really misleading, and clearly you can see his intentions were completely the opposite. Because just imagine if you did something he didn't like, and then he not only canceled your hotel reservations, but also he refused to get you where you needed to go in his car. So yeah, your dad's a massive jerk for what he did because he overreacted big time, and you and your family did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled old jerk blocks my car from leaving my parking spot, all because he was so obsessed just about the tiny car that I drive. But after I nearly sprayed that guy in the face with bear spray, this entitled old jerk finally gets the picture and runs off. And I'm honestly still shaken up, and I seriously hope I never deal with anyone like that ever again. Here's what happened. So I drive a small electric car. It's fully paid for, it gets me from point A to point B, and it's honestly just right for me. I went grocery shopping, and when I was leaving, this entitled old man yells out and says to me, "Watch out in that tiny car." Now, when he said that, I completely ignored him, and I just kept packing my groceries. I then hear footsteps and a closer, loud voice screaming from behind me. He says again, "You need to watch out in that tiny car." And once again, I just completely ignore him. My car is parked ahead, and he's not in a car. I mean, nobody's driving anything. I just want to get home and make some breakfast. So I get in my car, and when I look up, I see the entitled old man in his car quite literally beginning to pull in behind my car. At this point, he is idling and hanging out the window, yelling at me that once again, I need to watch out in that tiny car. But just like before, I just ignored him. He then steps out of his car, which was still parked right behind me, by the way, and walked over to the window. Now, at this point, I open my glove box and I grab my can of bear spray. The entitled old man gets out of his car, starts walking towards the driver's side window, and says to me, "Can't you hear me? Watch out in your tiny car. Why are you driving a car so small?" I then point the can at him through the window, and I scream, "Back off and get away from me." When I said this, he didn't move. So I hit the panic alarm on my key. By now, there's a few other shoppers staring at the situation, but not really doing anything to intervene. But regardless, I felt somewhat safer knowing other people were seeing this go down. The entitled old man finally gets the hint and gets back in his car. He then yells at me, "I was just trying to help out," and then he speeds off into the distance. I'm still rattled and extremely pissed off. I should have just sprayed that idiot without saying anything. The guy was in his 70s and thought that planting his car in order to block me from exiting a parking spot was somehow going to be helpful to me. But for some old entitled jerk, him saying that he just wanted to help looks and feels incredibly sketchy, and I really hope I never deal with anyone in this manner ever again. Yeah, it really seemed like that old man was really just asking to get sprayed in the face with bear mace. What in the world was he thinking, walking up to somebody like that and being like, "Oh, not only am I going to block you from leaving, but I'm also going to approach your window and scream these crazy delusional things." It's like, yeah, I'm aware. I know that I have a tiny car. It's not that big of a deal. He doesn't have to literally follow you into the parking lot, block your exit with his car, and then start pestering you through your window. So truly, that guy was out of his mind, and he absolutely deserved to get sprayed in the face, especially if he's going to be bothering you in that kind of way. Am I the jerk for taking away my brother's +1 invite to my wedding after he tries to bring along somebody who's incredibly toxic and a person who always makes a scene no matter what she does? Because right now he is very upset with me, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I know I am the jerk, but I need to know how bad it was. My brother is 29 years old, and he has been with someone who we will call Leah for about 2 years. Leah is not her real name, and for the record, we like Leah a lot. She is super nice. I am getting married next April, and I sent an invite to my brother's apartment. We decided to send invites to households and not individuals. For example, our aunt received an invite for her family and not for each individual. Last Thursday, we met at my parents' place, and it was just the core family members there. While we were there, I asked my brother about Leah's dietary restrictions. I know that she is vegetarian for health reasons, and that she cannot have certain raw vegetables. He said that she wasn't going to come, and that he was taking his girl best friend Amanda instead. Amanda is also not her real name. Now, their relationship is very weird. Amanda has always been stringing my brother along, in my opinion, and he always denies having feelings for her, but honestly, I think he's completely full of it. Amanda would date other guys, blow off my brother, then when things were on the decline with her partners, she would be attached to him once again. Her last boyfriend broke up with her right around the time my brother, his then ex-girlfriend, Amanda, and her ex were supposed to travel to Spain. So what did my idiot brother do? He went with Amanda alone because Amanda was uncomfortable with his ex-girlfriend. And obviously, he acted blindsided when his girlfriend broke up with him. I didn't even say anything anymore because it's all just so weird. So when he said that, I asked if Leah already had other plans, but my brother said that Amanda had asked if she could come because it would be an opportunity to finally see the old gang, as we were in the same friend group in high school. Well, I told him that I would have invited Amanda if I wanted her there. But here's the thing, Amanda is mean and cold. She always makes disparaging comments about other girls, and at every event around 1 hour in, she will make some sort of scene that either has her running away crying or sitting mad at a table, telling everyone to leave her alone, and then make a cryptic comment comment about something hurting her. Well, as a result, I told my brother I was revoking his +1 and that Amanda was not coming to our wedding. He then accused me of being misogynistic, all because I don't understand opposite gender friendships, which is just total BS. My husband has a female childhood friend who is his best woman. I love her too, and she has been amazing, and she respects boundaries. She always includes me and made a huge effort when I started dating my fiance to integrate me into the friend group. Anyways, I said that my decision was final. He could take it or leave it, but I would be inviting Leah myself because I like her. He then screamed at me and told me to keep out of his business, but I said that he needs to get rid of his weird feelings towards Amanda, and at this point, he's very mad at me. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, to be completely honest, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think your brother's a complete moron for not bringing Leah to your wedding. For starters, I think the main issue here is that you do not want Amanda at your wedding, and that in my opinion is completely reasonable. It makes perfect sense that you would not want her coming along, especially with the way she's acted in the past. And I really feel like this has nothing to do with your brother either. Like, even by herself, I feel like Amanda would probably cause some kind of problem at your wedding, and that is not something I would even want to begin to entertain in the slightest. Like, seriously, you just want a drama-free wedding, so for him to be like, no, I'm not going to bring my girlfriend that the family likes, I'm going to bring this one girlfriend that I'm denying having feelings for, despite all these other instances of him basically proving that yes, he does still have feelings for her. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting Amanda at your wedding, because at the end of the day, this is your wedding, and if you don't want her showing up, then that's exactly the way that it's gotta be. An entitled jerk demands that I buy him his cigarettes after I helped a kid pay for his chocolate milk that he couldn't quite afford. And when I told him that I wasn't gonna do that, this guy lost his mind, resulting in him getting denied service and eventually kicked out of my convenience store. Here's what happened. So I used to work at a little convenience store in a very small town. Every customer was a regular. I had this one kid who was about 12 years old, and he came every school day on his bike. He bought a chocolate milk and a thing of cheese crackers every day. The total at the time was $2.08 after tax, and the kid always paid in change, almost like it came straight out of his piggy bank. One day, he came in with this look that said he really had a bad day. He shuffled through the store and grabbed his usual stuff, but was short about 10 cents. He went to put his crackers up, but I pulled a dime out of my pocket. I smiled at him and said that it's all good and that he can enjoy his snack. Well, when I did that, the kid thanked me and he left looking quite a bit happier. The next customer was a regular as well, but he was a man in his 40s wanting his usual pack of cigarettes. I ring him up and I tell him the total, but he smiles and says, "Well, aren't you gonna pay for it?" I tell him no, I'm not gonna do that, but he proceeded to yell at me that if I'm buying customer stuff, then I should have to pay for his cigarettes. At this point, there is a line of customers behind him that saw what had happened with the kid, but I told him that there's a difference between helping a kid who is slightly short for an after-school snack and a full-grown man trying to force a woman to buy his smokes. He then starts yelling at me about favoritism, and I just look at him in the eyes and I say, yeah, so what? He proceeds to yell insults at me before I simply grab his cigarettes and I put them back on the shelf. The guy then says to me, "What are you doing? I'm buying those." I responded by saying, "Not today and not from me. Please leave." He then starts to reach across the counter when I step back away from him. Now, it's important to note that I was about 7 months pregnant at the time, and stepping back revealed my pregnant belly. I'm short, so the counter typically hid this feature. I wasn't doing it to reveal anything, I was just getting out of his reach. At this point, the customers behind him almost started a riot about him attacking a pregnant woman for helping a kid. And right after that, this guy was no longer a regular. He left in a huff, and every customer behind him started an after-school snack fund for that kid. It started with the first guy putting an extra $1 on the counter for the kid, and it just kept going till I set a jar. And as a result, the kid had free chocolate milk for almost a month before I had to go on maternity leave. And I'm honestly just proud that we were still able to help that kid, even though that other jerk tried to make such a big fuss out of it. Wow, that guy's a massive jerk. Who in their right mind would make a big deal about that and try to be like, ooh, if you're gonna pay for that kid's stuff, you gotta pay for mine as well. Like, this guy does know he's a 40-year-old man sitting there being like, buy my cigarettes, do it right now. The original poster literally just gave a dime to help this kid out, and this guy really wants to act like this is the end of the world. Like, seriously, that is such awful behavior, and I really hope that this guy is completely ashamed of himself. Am I the jerk for refusing to go back to my parents' house, all because of my little sister who lives there, and for the way that she's been treating me? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I'm in college, and when the semester finished a couple of weeks ago, I had planned to stay with some friends, but my parents told me that they wanted me to come home so bad, and that I should spend time with my family. Namely, it would be my parents and my 15-year-old sister. So I went home for summer break, but I really did not want to be there because I feel like my parents spoil my younger sister and I find it so annoying, and her attitude can be really annoying as well, but they are still my family, so I'm trying to do what I need to do. Well, it lasted 3 days when I found out my sister had put a camera in my room. I was so mad, and my sister told me I was being such a drama queen and that there's nothing wrong with getting some footage of me. She seriously tried to claim that it was no different to home movies. My parents were telling me to calm down while I confronted my sister, and they acted like she was a baby who didn't get what she was doing. But she is old enough to know so much better, and she's old enough to be taught at the very least. I ended up deleting all the stuff I found on me and my sister's laptop, and then I went to my friend's place like I had originally planned. My parents thought that I was just gone for the night, but I told them that I wasn't coming back. They gave me a few more days, and when they realized I was serious, they told me I need to come back home sometimes, and in the heat of the anger I'm still feeling, I told them I won't go back in their house as long as my sister still lives with them. Now, what I really should have said and what I do feel is that there's no point for me to go back to them anymore when they value her way more than me, and they don't seem to care about me in the slightest. Because seriously, acting like it was no big deal for what she did is just so incredibly gross. My parents told me that I shouldn't talk that way with my younger sister and that I'm throwing a toddler's temper tantrum instead of responding to all of this like an adult would. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to go back? Because right now I am still so angry with them, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this story really upsets me because this is not okay. I don't care who you are, you cannot secretly record somebody against their will. That is incredibly sketchy, there's no good excuse for that, and honestly I just cannot believe anybody in their right mind would ever justify that. Your parents are sitting there acting like, wow, you're just so overreacting right now. You're throwing a toddler's temper tantrum, you need to calm down and talk like an adult. And it's like, what are you talking about? Any reasonable adult would be like, oh yeah, your 15-year-old sister is grounded for like a year for doing that. And by the way, this is not the same thing as having a home movie. This is literally your sister violating your privacy and also doing something illegal depending on where you live. Because for example, if you live in the United States like I do, I'm willing to bet in most places that if you record somebody secretly against their will, I'm pretty sure that's illegal and you can get in serious trouble if you pursue that. So for your parents to be like, oh wow, you're just getting so worked up over this, that is crazy in my opinion, and that is not okay. And it really does prove that they spoil their younger sister and they clearly feel that she could do no wrong. So no, you are not the jerk for not going back, because if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would go back there, because any semblance of trust I would have in them is completely shattered, and I just don't think that you should have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my younger siblings that I'm not their dad and that they need to stop acting like I'm their parent? Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old male, and my parents had me at 19 years old, and I was the only child for 6 years. They then had 3 kids back to back, who are now 16, 15, and 14. My parents were never the most attentive parents, but they did a better job with my younger siblings than they did with me. But at some point, while my siblings were still really young, they started to come to me like I was an adult instead of going to my mom and dad, and they just kind of let it happen. Now, they were still there, but my siblings would ask me to make them food, or they'd ask me for money, even though I didn't have any back then, or they'd want me to help them with homework, or they'd come to me if they're struggling to do their chores. Needless to say, it got annoying very quickly, and I asked my parents to step in so that I wasn't always saying no, or having a sibling throw a temper tantrum, all because I wasn't acting like more of an adult than the parents in the house who were supposed to be there to do stuff for them. My parents were there for the basics, and if my siblings didn't come to me, they would deal with stuff, but otherwise they seemed glad to not have to deal with all of the parenting. But they still were not as good with me as they were with my siblings. It was some things like prioritizing supporting my siblings instead of me, or making a big effort for their birthdays but not mine. Christmas was another time it was super obvious because my siblings got gifts that they wanted, but I would get gifts that I just really needed. Stuff like hygiene products or socks or even underwear. I brought it up to my parents when I was 15 years old, and they used the excuse that they had me at 19, so they just didn't know how to connect with me in the same way, and they didn't have the means to provide for me like they did my siblings. When I learned how to drive and started working, my siblings relying on me got worse. They wanted me to drive them places, give them money, they wanted me to take them to school and pick them up. They would expect me to buy birthday gifts for their friends and take them shopping for that stuff. My youngest sibling even asked me to be a parent chaperone on a field trip when I was only 16 years old. It was all so suffocating, and my siblings could not be spoken to about it. They just wanted me to be the dad. And in fact, they even called me dad sometimes. I was desperate to get out, and COVID almost completely messed me up, but I was very lucky that my girlfriend's family let me move in with them. Once I I left, I tried to better enforce my boundaries and create a distance, but they still wanted me there, and they would cry down the phone about me leaving and not being there for stuff. Now that my siblings are teenagers, I tried to talk to them about it again, but my sister, who's 16 years old, said that I had to do these things because I'm supposed to. I asked her why I was supposed to do anything, and she said because you're basically our dad. And my brothers even agreed with her. Now, I will admit it, this really upset me, and I told them in a firm and angry tone that I am not their dad and they needed to stop acting like I'm the parent of the house, because in reality, I'm their sibling. I'm the oldest for sure, but I'm not their parent and I'm not responsible for them. But they said that I was a jerk and that I should like taking care of them. So I'm honestly so frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. First of all, I don't think you're the jerk at all for telling them exactly what's up and explaining to them that no, you are not their parent. But also, your actual parents are the worst people on planet Earth. How are they not more involved in their kids' lives? They've basically put you in a corner and forced you to be the substitute parent that they never were. And that, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. So no, you are not the jerk, because this is a responsibility that you should have never been responsible for from the beginning. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.